Thank you so much, Nadine, for being a guest on my IG Live series. I really appreciate it, especially given that it is National Indigenous History Month. I think this is really a time, even though it's a very difficult time, it's we're in tumultuous times, but it also is a time to celebrate the achievements and the accomplishments of Indigenous people and really talk about historic figures and members of the community who have done a lot of work. And I think it's important in any way for me to highlight that as well, to ensure that, we're continuing that work, not only just on the front lines and through petitions and support in different ways, but we're also highlighting talents and current day individuals who are really putting in the work as it is right now. So thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's been a crazy time.
Yes, yes, and there's been a lot of ups and downs. So I'm grateful that you were able to take out the time today to sit and speak with me. I
Yeah,
really
my
appreciate it.
pleasure.
So the first thing I wanted to go into for the folks that are here on the live now and the folks that may come in later or may see it later, tell us a bit about your background.
Sure. So I'm a writer, an academic, photographer, an editor. I edit writing, not photos necessarily, although I can do that too. Um, and I actually come from the West Coast, so I'm from BC. Grew up there, and then I moved here for school and have kind of stuck around a bit longer. Um, And there, my affiliations are with the Seashell Nation. My mom is a Seashell band member, and then my dad is a European settler, and his whole family descend from European settlers. Yeah, so
Mm.
been really nice to be in Toronto and see a different side of Canada.
Do you plan to go back to the West Coast anytime soon, or are you sticking around for a bit?
I'd like to stick around some more.
No, good, good. Because I feel like I know we spoke about being able to go out and we were supposed to do lunch or something like, and then all this craziness happened and we couldn't. So I'm like, don't leave just yet. We still gotta really catch up. So I'm really happy to hear that. And I'm really appreciative to have you here today. So if you don't mind me going into one facet of the work that you do, what got you into photography and why that was really of interest to me is because having done a bit of modeling and having working on building my modeling portfolio, I've worked with different photographers. And one thing I've learned from my experiences, every photographer comes at a shoot totally differently than another. Everyone has their own individual style. Everyone has the way they like things to be done. So I'd love to delve into what got you personally into photography.
Yeah, sure. So for me, it started when I was a child. My aunt gave me a camera, like a point and shoot camera, and it just kind of became like a way for me to explore the world and explore my surroundings and connect with people. And I was super into it. So I think around my 16th birthday, she gave me her husband's old SLR camera, and I was like the only person, or one of the very few people lucky enough to have one of those like big professional cameras. So I had a lot of family members and friends of family asking me to do like, family photos and engagement photos and kind of documenting different events like birthdays and celebrations and stuff. And so that's what a huge majority of my work has been so far. Yeah, and then since then, I just really find myself drawn to photography and the camera and kind of exploring questions I have about the world and hangups I have through photography. And it's a really nice way to kind of connect with myself as well and center myself. Yeah, I had a bit of a hiatus when I was doing anthropology because I learned about the violent history of photography and how it's been used in really oppressive ways. Um, so that was kind of hard to work through and like coming back to it. But since I've graduated and um, kind of returning to myself since finishing my degree in anthropology, and it's been a really healing journey so far just to recenter myself with the camera.
Wow, that's amazing. I wanted to ask you then really quickly if we a little side question based on your answer. What was that like? I would say because I feel like being an artist and being a creative at times you're right. There are parts of different art forms historically that have oppressive values, that have values. They weren't used for good things. And I feel like one thing I've seen across the board, especially with it being National Indigenous History Month, it's Pride Month, um, and I see even with Black History Month and everything going on with Black Lives Matter, there's always this aspect of reclamation. And I
Mm.
feel like I see that across the board in different forms, being part of these groups and seeing these things happen in real time. How important and how does that kind of impact you? Because it's almost like you've seen and you've learned about what parts or aspects of it that maybe you don't like as much, but you still utilize it as a form to express yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. And I've seen a lot of other people as well kind of return to things and reclaim them. And yeah, I think it can be really powerful if you let it, because if you just sit and allow like the things to kind of get you down and not figure ways through them, then you're just letting it win in a sense. And so, yeah, it's been kind of a challenging process, but it's good and it's necessary to recognize that stuff and think about ways of doing things better.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think specifically with photography and indigeneity, it's really important for Indigenous photographers to reclaim that medium and kind of the camera's in our own hands, and now we get to kind of, yeah, so yeah, does that make sense? Like, so instead of being the subjects of photography, it's been for a while, but there's a lot of really powerful Indigenous photographers that are doing really amazing work to reclaim and spread awareness.
And I also think, I feel that way in like a number of regards too. Like a lot of times I think of like tech. And I'm always like, I want to
Mm.
see Black and Indigenous people in tech like a lot more. And I'm not saying there already doing the work, and shout out to them. But I want to see that more. I want to see it in like the video game industry. I want to see it in the entertainment industry, like across the board. I'm just like, I feel you on that really deeply, just where it's like there's these pockets where we're not being represented and we're not getting the same opportunities. And even in my post today about National Indigenous History Month, like I talked about that as a Black and Indigenous artist, I've seen those spaces. I've felt that where it's like there's barricades and there's gatekeepers, and it's like, wait a minute, like, but we're here in a multicultural city, we're here in a multicultural country. Why are those doors not open? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we can go on and on. We may have to have a second conversation about some of those things because it's a reality. And I know some people feel like it's getting light now, but this has been an issue from, I mean, come on, like this is a long-term issue. This is not something that just happened yesterday. I saw a funny tweet about that today actually, where someone said, uh, oh, you guys are tired of allyship. You've known about racism for like 24 hours. And I'm like, well, anyway, we'll give out, it's another conversation for another day. But I really appreciate your insight on that because I think that's very true. I agree with everything that you've said. Now, hey, Lady D. So now to kind of turn things to Untitled double underscore 37, which I think is really cool, which I think is an amazing project.
Thanks.
Would love to know, yes, I would love to know how that came to be and what your goal is in all of that.
Sure. So it really started out it was my partner and I, Sebastian, who's one of the collaborators. We just needed somewhere to put our photography and our different artwork, and it was a really great way to share it with, like, kind of privately with family and friends. And then our friend, our oldest friend, like my oldest friend growing up, Petey, she also has been an artist as long as I've known her. So we were just kind of talking about turning it into a collective. So we did that a few years ago. And the main kind of goal we had to begin with was really about collaboration and learning from each other, sharing feedback, providing like safe space, because all of us have had different like obstacles in our trajectories. Yeah, and so it started out with just being a space for us to share and work together, but we have reached a point where we'd like to do a little bit more publicly. So we started Instagram just like a month ago, or a few, not even, I don't think. So we've started to expand our horizons.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great to hear. And Nadine is speaking with us from Untitled's Instagram account. So if you're watching this, please go follow them. Please check them out 100%. I wanted to pull a quote from Untitled underscore 37 bio. So I'm going to read it. I'm only reading it from the page, not because I want to make sure I get it right. And your bio states that we respond with steeped practices, an aesthetic of the slow, gradual, and incomplete, works in progress that engage in flow before outflow. So, what can you tell us about this process and why you've decided to go about this way of releasing
Mhm.
projects?
Yeah. So really that was really for us a way to kind of acknowledge the pressures we were experiencing as emerging and burgeoning artists. The pressures to like what we kind of identified this panic production, panic consumption, this like race to always get your ideas out, your products out, never showing anyone the process and always trying to put out finished products. And that doesn't resonate with us. We don't work that way. We all like to take our time and enjoy the process of creation, and we don't want it cut short from like with the pressure of coming out in some kind of race of some sort to just to be seen, and hardly like because there's it's such a big world. And so we thought we'd kind of frame ourselves and situate ourselves in a different practice as a way to give ourselves the time and space to engage in our processes and even to share that with people. So a lot of the works on my page are works in process or works in progress. They're not finished. I don't really think anything's finished. You can return to anything at any point. And as I'm learning more and developing new insights and perceptions, I will return to some of those projects and add to them. And yeah, so that's kind of what we were getting at and where we're coming from. And it's really meant just for us as a way to ground ourselves.
No, no, that's very profound. I actually, if you don't mind me adding to that, I would, because I really liked that. I really resonated with that a lot. And in some of my past interviews that I've done with this IG Live series, there's been conversations about kind of like this capitalistic world, Western world mindset where you got to go like this, like things have to get done and things got to get out. And I love that you said not showing the process because that is also kind of part of the whole mysterious what's behind the artist kind of thing that's also like a real trope that people still follow to today. So I sometimes fall in that too. And I feel
Yeah.
sometimes even as an artist, that pressure is also on me. I definitely feel that 100% where it's like you need to be putting something out. And if you did just put something out, you need to put out something else so that people are
Yeah.
checking out both things. And it can be a lot, and especially when you are trying to figure yourself out as an artist and you're still going through that creative journey, that can put a lot of pressure, as you said, on someone, and it can really have an opposite effect where someone is unable to produce because of these insurmountable pressures that are being put on them to create and release.
Mhm.
So could you speak to that in any way, just to add to that a little more?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a huge impetus for us as well. And the other element to that that I didn't mention before, but it's a huge thing for us is the competition. I don't want to participate in a way in which I need to get my ideas out first because I'm afraid someone else will do it before me and then I can't. Like also this idea of why can't we make similar things? Like, why do we all need to produce something original? What's wrong with having similarities and learning from each other and building off of others? So that's also kind of part of that capitalist mentality that we're trying to move away from in all aspects of our life, but like starting with our practice as well.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And it's great to see. And I see it in the work that you guys are doing with Untitled. One piece in particular that I really enjoyed, that anyone who saw our promotional post has already got to
Mhm.
see, is your Merck and Meyer piece, which I thought was incredibly done.
Thank
Um,
you.
yes, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really deep and really insightful. Could you give us kind of a look into the behind the scenes of what brought that together?
Yeah, for sure. That one kind of emerged really spontaneously for me and not at the same time. So it kind of started a long time ago. In 2011, I had a dream, and the dream took place in a swamp, and it was very scary and by the end of the dream, I realized it was all a metaphor for life, like that sometimes we can't see what's beneath the surface, we can't see what's in the dark, we can't see what's in front of us, and it can be terrifying. And in the dream, I was having a hard time moving forward, but I knew I had to get through the swamp in order to get to wherever I was going. And so that was kind of the inspiration behind it. In the end, like I realized, that the swamp doesn't have to be scary just because we can't see what's in front of us. It doesn't mean that we're alone necessarily, and we always have others with us that we carry with us and that come with us everywhere. So yeah, so that was kind of the inspiration for it, and I've had it in the back of my mind for like 10 years and not really thought about it. And then one day while I was doing some mundane task like dishes or something, I just started to remember the dream, and some words were coming to mind in a kind of like, I guess almost like a poem. And it reminded me, so I just kind of looked through some old photos to see if I had any photos of a swamp, and I happened to have some from a few years ago. So I just kind of put
Oh,
them together, and so it's really, the project is really pieces from various places. So I pulled these old pictures from a place I was at in Vancouver and kind of played with them through editing software, which I'm starting to. I never used to use editing software much. I was more of a film photographer, so I would do a lot of stuff in darkroom, but especially now with COVID, I can't go to any dark rooms, so been trying to learn more about Photoshop and whatnot. Yeah, so that was kind of a fun process to do that. And then the writing was interesting too, because when I first started, I had like this long transcribed dream written out, and then I pared it down, and then it kind of turned into a poem, like with the inspiration I got while doing dishes. And then from the poem, I it turned into a story, and then back, I just kind of pared it down to the two main pieces that are there of writing. And my reason for that was I do a lot of writing, and a lot of my photography is surrounded with writing, so I kind of wanted to put together a piece that wasn't so saturated in writing. Um, and I just thought that those two lines kind of spoke to the dream and to the intent. So, but
no,
even since I keep editing it, like it could change.
no, and I loved it. I thought it was very poetic. I loved the pictures that came along with it, and to hear now, because when I first read it and I first kind of witnessed it, um, I thought it was like you had written it and you had gone out and you had gone to the
Oh,
swamp and you had taken these pictures and it all kind of, but to hear now that it was something you'd done prior to and you all kind of pieced it together, I absolutely love that. And I really, really respect you for doing that because I think one thing, if there's any artists here today, there are a few, I see them in the comments. If there's any like creatives at all, one thing I think is like such a good piece of advice is do not delete, get rid of anything. Like, no matter what you're doing, keep it all because you never know when you will be able to pull from something and add new light to it. So, that is actually really amazing. Thank you
yeah.
for sharing that.
Sure. It's actually funny because those images were not good. Like they were way, way overexposed. I didn't think they were salvageable at all. And when I started editing them with this Merck and Meyer in mind and this idea of a swamp, I actually found that the overexposure allowed me to kind of pull out those details under the water by kind of heightening the contrast and whatnot. So it actually ended up working out that they were not very good to begin with. So I think that's kind of interesting too.
And I think sometimes one thing I've even learned with just consuming music is sometimes, for example, I'm just not in the mood that day or that I'm at a certain point in my life or at a period in my life where I can't really I just digest this the way that I'm going to love it and I'm going to take the most out of it. And I can come back to it at a later point and I can see so much more in it and I can see the vision. And so I think that's another reason why it's good not to delete anything or get rid of anything because just maybe in that moment it's not meant for that moment. Like for you, it was once you had this dream, once you were washing these dishes and you thought it over more and you gave it kind of a landscape and a setting, then you were able to bring about these pictures. So I think that's incredible. So
Yeah,
I think that's so cool that you shared that. So thank you so much.
sure. Yeah.
Um, Dwayne Wade said, "Oh, I'm in a slump." See, so, yeah, and I'm sorry to hear that. It's like that sometimes. I do hope you're able to get out of it. Sometimes I also feel like, and maybe Nadine, if you have any advice, you can share as well. Sometimes I feel like when I feel like I'm in a creative slump, for example, sometimes what I've tried to rationalize it as is right now my focus is not supposed to be creating. It's supposed to
Mm.
be doing something else, and I'm not focusing on that, or maybe I don't want to focus on that, or maybe I haven't considered it. Its importance, for example, but I really need to be over here doing this so that I can come back with a fresh face to the music. What are your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree with you for sure. I think it's really good to acknowledge when, maybe your time is, being called elsewhere. Um, for myself, I find being in a slump, it really makes me sad. I really hate it. It's so awful, especially when maybe your context, it's a good time to create. Like right now, for me, this is such a good time for creating because I can't work anywhere and
Mm-hmm.
there's like everything's still closed. So it's such a prime time. But um, what I try to do is if I'm in a slump, that's maybe when I'll try and learn something new because if I'm not feeling inspired creatively, it might be a good time to do some like YouTube videos or tutorials on some kind of technique or something.
I like that idea, especially if you could learn a new skill, learn something new. You're still exercising your creative mind, just in a different way. And I
Yeah.
also we've had this conversation in some of my previous IG lives where I spoke about the fact that when quarantine happened, the world kind of called on artists to create and they wanted everyone to share their art. But for some people, and I'm one of those people in the
I
beginning
love
of
that.
quarantine, huh?
I love that when you said that, I really like that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, like they called on us, but then it's like at the beginning of quarantine, I didn't feel I was in a good place to create, and I didn't feel like that was my time. Then I had to kind of recalibrate and forgive myself for that and be okay with that, and know that I'll create, just not right now.
Yeah, that's actually something we talk about too with what we talk about as panic production is being okay with the slumps too. Being okay when the inspiration doesn't come or when you're like flooded with inspiration but you just don't feel like creating,
Mm-hmm.
which is what happened to me when COVID started. I had so much inspiration and I just was kind of down and not in the place for making anything. Um, and you have to be okay with that, I guess. I mean, it's easier said than done, and
Mm-hmm.
recognizing different levels of privilege with respect to that as well. I mean, I do art as it's not my profession, so um, but yeah, being okay with the different ebbs and flows, I think, is helpful, and
Yeah,
forgiving yourself.
yeah. Because when you're creative, sometimes it's gonna be peaks and valleys.
Yeah,
This is what it is. But I really hope, Dwayne, that you're able to get through that and keep pushing and giving us amazing music. So the next, and thank you, Nadine, for your insight on that. I really appreciate you sharing that too. So the next question I wanted to talk to you about is another piece of yours, your still life piece. And you kind of were calling on individuals who are viewing it to think of like still life photography in like a different way and how movement and other things are kind of being, I don't want to say discarded, I want to say almost kind of looked past or looked beyond when you're using still life as like a medium, and you gave like some really amazing photos as some examples. So how important do you think movement is when it comes to those kind of pieces?
um, I'm all about movement, so I think it's really important with everything. My partner Sebastian, he's a dancer, so he's also often advocating to acknowledge the movement in everything. Um, the still life piece was kind of, I was using still life as kind of an entry point to get into a bigger discussion, which was kind of, um, I guess, a question I have with all photography, a question about how we interpret images and how we interact with images and photography. And I worry that that there's a lack of education, especially around youth today with our kind of image, world, image saturated world. And so what I was getting at with the Still Life project is that I guess I was trying to beckon people to to not just take things at face value, to look, at how images are in conversation with one another, look at how, so some of those pieces, and there's one strip in that project that you're referring to, where I have like some ingredients and then like a jar full of utensils and then a truck with a sign churros at the end. And so
Mhm.
that's meant to be like a conversation between the three images, or there's three of a dead, there's three that reference death in a way. Um,
Yes.
a skeleton. Yeah, so just kind of encouraging people to think beyond the frame and to start to engage with and question the context of these images, because I worry that's where stereotypes and assumptions can be made. I also found it was also a little bit of some frustration with anthropology, because they're very, very critical of photography, and rightly so. But what I was understanding as what anthropologists see as a limit in the medium, I was seeing a limit in perception, how we perceive images. And we are taught in our society to take images as, uncontestable facts. And their expressions, they're subjective. I mean, they do provide evidence as well, but it's not just that.
Do you also feel that is a part of this social media world we kind of live in now, where people are they're just taking things at face value so quickly, and they're not always looking for the context. They're not always looking for the movement. They're not looking for a deeper message. They just see it, they just believe it, and then it's the next thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like this can connect back to what we were talking about earlier with process, where we see other artists and other people and people we look up to putting out these amazing works, but we don't see how long it took them to do that, or what kind of, like blood, sweat, and tears went into it. And then we judge ourselves thinking we're not good enough because we're not measuring up. And so I think it's good to recognize that everything's in process.
Mhm. And also understanding that every other artist process, you may not know the other variables that are a part of that. You don't know the other people behind the scenes that are helping them make that
Yeah.
happen. And you're just saying, oh, wow, they're doing this and that. And that's why I think comparison too, and you raised that before, and the competitive nature, it's going to kill your art because you're so focused on everything that person's doing or everything you think they're doing when it could be a whole team behind that. You know what I mean? It takes a
Yeah.
village. And so people, if you don't see that and you don't know all the ins and outs of what another person's doing, there's no point in even looking at them as like a benchmark for where you can be inspired. There's nothing wrong with being
Mhm.
inspired, but when
Yeah.
it comes to the point where like I have to be doing what they're doing, it's like, but you don't even know how they're doing that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Very, very true. No, great points on that. So what can we expect next from Untitled double underscore 37, personally with yourself as well as collectively with the other group members?
Well, we all are continuing to work on individual projects. Petey is really focused right now on her restaurant business and developing art with and around that. She actually has another Instagram account for La Dana Vegana, which is her vegan restaurant.
Oh, wow.
And and Sebastian is in a PhD program at York University doing dance, and so he's got lots of different projects going on as well. And myself, I'm working on a photo um, collage, I guess you could call it. And it's tentatively called kinship collage. And the
Hmm.
collage idea is with respect to me. Like, so I'm the collage. It's about, it has to do with the intricacies, pleasures, and responsibilities of being part of a family. And it's also to do with seeing myself as multiple. So embodied in me are, my family members and various encounters and experiences I've had. Like, so yeah, so that's kind of what I'm working on right now. And I have parts of that ready. I'm just waiting for approval from some family members who are involved in that project, because it isn't just about me it's going to be involving story, like really personal stories and dreams from other family members. So I just want to make sure that they're comfortable with what's there before I share it. Yeah.
Wow, no, that's amazing. I'm looking forward to that. I can't wait
Yeah,
to see.
I'm looking forward to it as well. It's I've hit a few snags, so I'm just waiting to work through those. And yeah, I think this is going to be a very long project, like a 10-year project.
Wow.
Um, but I'm fine with that. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun. And I'm hoping to show little pieces of it as I work away. And collectively, we are just now starting to talk about maybe doing a virtual exhibit for this year at some point and trying to pull something together between the three of us, like whether it's new work or old work that we just kind of reconnect through that. Yeah.
Wow. Well, when that happens, please send me the info so I can definitely promote and share
Okay.
that. I would love
Sure.
to be a witness to that and hopefully get some other people to come through as well. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you.
Yes. And in regards to your project, I wish you the absolute best. I commend your dedication. I commend your foresight. And whatever obstacles come in the way, I feel like the best stories have a few obstacles. So I know
That's
you'll.
true.
The one comment I would just before we get into the next question, Lady D said that's a good point about comparison. I think being transparent about the process definitely helps with that for other artists looking in. I think that's very true. I think whenever I've heard about what struggles other artists have gone through when pursuing creation of art and trying to get stuff out, it always inspires me to know that, oh, like they're going through their own struggles too, but they still made it happen. So I can do it too. And that's maybe the reverse side of it. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, no, I really resonate with that really resonates with me. I really like that. I I really think we could all share a lot more and I think we could grow through sharing. Like I really like the idea of together we are stronger and I mean I don't want to take away from individual pursuits as well. I recognize that that's important as well and people need the freedom to do what's right for them. But yeah, I think it's very helpful to hear other people's process. It helps me
Agreed.
a lot of like a lot of what I'm working through and stuff is to do with struggles with my own process, and so that's why I'm just trying to be transparent now and help others if I can.
No, and thank you for the work that you're doing. So the next, I want to switch gears a little bit, if you're okay with that, and talk a little bit more about National Indigenous History Month because we are in the middle of that month, and National Indigenous Peoples Day is this weekend. So first, I would love to know what does National Indigenous History Month mean to you?
For me, it's like what you were saying at the beginning. It's a time to remember, honor, and learn more about our histories, as well as reconnecting with like our family and our ancestors. It's also, I think it's a really important time to think about participate in and support projects to do with Indigenous futurity. I really like creative projects. There's a lot of really amazing work that we can engage with and support. And so that's what I like to do for Indigenous History Month. I really love reading, and there's so many amazing Indigenous authors and books to engage with now, and Indigenous cinema. So
Mhm.
it's great, great time.
What would you say people should do more this month and throughout the year to further, and you've kind of elucidated on it a little bit, but to further their understanding and their support of Indigenous peoples?
I think, like I was saying, it's a good time to learn about the history. I feel like a lot of people still don't know the history of Canada. I still don't feel like I fully know it. There's so much more I need to learn. Um, and yeah, reading is a really great option. I actually have a couple books that I was going to show you. This is
Yes,
a really
please.
good, I really recommend this book by Thomas King.
Hmm.
Great history lesson. And this one is also a fantastic book, Memory Serves by Maracle. Um, yeah, and then there's this one is lovely as well,
Oh,
Embers.
wow. Thank you for doing that. Would it be possible if you could send me the names and the authors of those books afterwards, and then I can make sure it's posted on Instagram and YouTube because I
Yeah,
would
so
love for people to have something afterwards that they can follow up with.
sure, no problem. I also on our my collective's Instagram page we have this inspiration highlight that's been we've been highlighting Indigenous, Black, and LGBTQ authors to be inspired by and to engage with.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that when I was on there. I have to go find that page. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna check that after. Okay, we'll talk about. I want to see that now. Oh my gosh. Okay, I will definitely check into that. Thank you for doing that as well. Would you
Yeah,
say it's the importance to is because especially you coming from a creative background as well, myself included, and that it is extremely important as well for people to be supporting the arts when it comes to Indigenous peoples in particular.
yeah, I would agree with that completely. I just want to clarify, the page I'm talking about, it's on the Instagram account. So it's a
Okay.
highlight. We are actually working on a page right now under one of my tabs where we're going to share resources that Sebastian and I have encountered through school, through the academy. So I have a reading list right there right now with actually it's the history of racial thought, and kind of exploring the roots of white supremacy. And so I'm just working through that reading list now because I wrote summaries in my master's, so I want to put those summaries up, but I'm right now I'm translating them into normal like under comprehensible language because they're very like theoretical and academic and I can hardly understand them now. So I'm editing those down and making them accessible and then those will be up as well on our website. That is on our website.
Website and your highlights on your Instagram page. Okay, I will go
Yeah.
check that out. Thank you for confirming that. Just
Yeah.
before we get to the next thing, Pink Kitty Music said in the comments, the prof in one of my past courses read Embers to us in class. Shout out to your
Oh, that's
professor.
wonderful.
That is awesome. I mean, like I still have all the books I have from university and from my Indigenous Studies courses, and there's one author of one of the books I really want to reach out to again because I met her. We did kind of a like a Q&A talk with her, and I was so taken aback. I just loved her. I loved everything she said. I loved her book. I'll send you the info for that book. I'll go
It'd
find
be
it.
great. Yeah, please
Yeah,
do.
it was a post-apocalyptic, and she was just real. She was just everything. So again, please support Indigenous arts, not just during this month, but throughout the year. I think I want to see more of that. I want to see the support across the board, and not just for artists like me, but just across the board who are doing in different disciplinarians, who are opening doors in industries and all of that. I definitely want to see more of that.
Yeah, please do.
I agree. So where can people find your socials? I know we are talking on Untitled's page, and they can definitely find you and follow you there. But where else can people find your socials? Where can they support you? And where can they see what you're working on next?
Me personally, I'm really just this Instagram account that we're using right now, the Untitled 37, as well as the website. I don't really have, I do have Facebook, and you can look me up. It's Nadine Ryan, but I don't use Facebook very often. Um, yeah, other than that, I'm also a member of Gallery 44, the Center for Contemporary Photography. So I hang out there and I do work there. And I've been invited to exhibit some work from my kinship collage there for next year. So
Congrats.
thank you. Yeah, so that's probably the next thing for me. Um, and then Sebastian has his own Instagram handle, which I'll have to send it to you after,
Mhm.
as well as Petey.
Mhm.
That was, yeah.
Yeah,
And on our
everything.
website, we also have contact information as well.
And I do want to say that their website is beautiful. It's so aesthetically pleasing, and everything is set up so well. And I personally know from having a couple websites in my past, it is not easy to get everything together for a website. So I really commend you. It's
Yeah,
extremely
thank you. That's really good to hear. I'm glad that it was easy to navigate.
No, well, thank you so much for your time, Nadine. I definitely would like to have another conversation with you down the line if you'd ever be interested, so we could talk more about indigeneity and maybe our experiences. I just don't want to get into a conversation like that and we run out of time or there's an issue with Instagram because I want it to get as the highlight that it deserves. So I would definitely be down for that. I would also be down to do a photo shoot with you if you would be interested in that too. Just putting it out there.
I would love that. Yeah.
We could tell. Oh my gosh, we could have so many things that I've like. I just and I just really appreciate you. There's another comment I want to make sure I don't miss. Lady D said, back to an earlier part of the discussion. Do you find challenges in sharing the process and being so transparent, i.e., sharing drafts of your work?
Oh,
Thank you for your
completely.
question.
I have so much trouble with it. I don't like sharing. In
Really?
the sense that I'm just very, I love sharing. I love sharing in things with people, but I'm very nervous to share my work, honestly.
Really? Oh.
I have a hard time letting it go. Like it's
Mm,
never finished for me, and so it never feels ready. And that's also part of what rooting ourselves this way is about, is to push me to actually start sharing things, because if I just keep waiting till I feel like they're ready for public viewing, it's never going to be happening. So, yeah.
no, and I actually wanted to reference as well. Ryan Leslie is an artist that I had heard about that he had done a album where he was calling he didn't call it evergreen. That's not the word he used, but it was like a continuous album. Only you had to kind of
Hmm.
sign up on his page to be a part of it. And he's like, this is going to be just a continuous process. It's going to keep getting added to and added to. So I see it being done in different art forms. And I'll be honest, since he did that, and that was a few years ago, I have not seen another artist in the music kind of world take on a project like that or try to do something like that. So it's really great to see what you're doing. Because I think it's really important to have that evergreen style, if you don't mind me using that terminology.
I
Um,
like that.
because everything grows and everything kind of like changes with time, and the way, like we were talking about before, the way you look at something from before, you may totally change your perspective, and that gives you the opportunity to continue on that artistic journey with that piece of art. And
Yes.
and I feel like sometimes the world, it's almost like once you're done, it's stamped like next. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's this like conveyor belt aspect to it.
Mhm.
And that's why I think I really respect and love what you guys are doing, because it totally just goes away from that, and you're going in a direction where everything can grow and everything can be shared, and it's such a special space that you're opening up to everybody. So I really do commend you for
That's great. That's so good to hear. Yeah, it's tough, but I think it's really important, and it's good in the long run to take this approach. It's
that.
working for us.
There we go.
Also, I agree with you. Like as I learn more stuff, actually, when I was going to school in anthropology, like when I was doing my master's in anthropology, I found it really difficult to let go of my work, because the more I learn, the more I feel like I don't know. And so I always wanted to make sure everything was as appropriate as it could be. But I realized that's not practical because I keep growing myself. So,
Agreed. I completely agree. And I said it in one of my past interviews where I said people, I feel especially nowadays, they want to see the process. They want to see the gradual growth. They want to see the start to finish. I feel like we live in a time where everything is so open now, I feel, in a sense, and people want to see every single part. I feel like in the past, maybe a lot of things were like mysterious, and you just saw the beautiful finished product, and that was how you consumed art. And
yeah,
now you see that now people want to see, no, I want to see you going to the place where you're taking the photos. I want to see you taking the photos. I want to see the photos, but then I want to see your edits, but then I want to see before the edits, like what did that look like? And I want to see your drafts. So I love the approach that you guys are taking, and I think it will be extremely successful. And I think people should take the time to view it, to consume it, and to go on that journey with you, because you've opened the door for them to do so.
yeah.
So thank you so much, Nadine. I feel like honestly we could talk about. We have so much to talk about, and I'm really looking forward to when we can connect in another way, whether it's again up on it's online, but also in person, because I really think you are a phenomenal woman. I think you were
Oh,
such a
thank you.
sweetheart, and I feel like when we got to connect in real life, I really was taken by you, and I was so grateful for the opportunity to get to know you.
Oh,
So
thanks so
I'm
much.
looking. Yes, no, and I'm looking forward to when we can connect again, hopefully at an Indigenous restaurant, because I know that was our plan. And I'm like, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm hungry. I want to try some more Indigenous food, and I'm like, we got to go support. So
Yes.
I'm really looking
It
forward to
was,
that.
I really appreciate you too and all the work you're doing. You're a very powerful and inspiring person. So thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you, and thank you for agreeing to be a part of it. So you have a great night. Have a great weekend. Um, it's National Indigenous Peoples Day. I hope you're able to celebrate. Hope you've been able to celebrate the month. I implore everybody watching, please go do more research, go learn more, consume more, support more Indigenous arts, Indigenous people, Indigenous history. This is a great month and a great time to do it, especially with everything going on. And please stay tuned. I'll be definitely, please check out the highlights page on their Instagram to see the authors and the creatives that they're highlighting. And also stay tuned on me and MMX Productions, the kind of company I work with for promotion. We're going to be working on some more information that's going to come out, just as we did in Black History Month, where we shared historic figures and such. We're going to be doing that again later this month. So please stay tuned for that as well. Thank you,
Great.
Nadine, for your
Thank
time,
you.
and we will talk soon. Thank you to everyone who joined today and had any comments or questions. I really appreciate it. It adds so much to
Thank
the discussion,
you.
and we'll see you all soon. Thank
Bye.
you, Nadine. See you.